Right time for us to begin our studies. If you will, open your Bibles to Titus chapter 1. We're ready for verse 12. Titus chapter 1, verse 12. Before we begin, let's go to God in prayer. Let's remember all those of our number that are sick. Keith is doing a little better. He's at home, and for that we're certainly grateful and thankful. Have some others that are sick. Sybil Harper is not doing well. Scarlett tells me this morning she's had problems with her lungs and continued to cough, but she also caught a stomach virus at the ER, I think, when she went to the ER and came home with that. So she can't seem to catch a break there a little bit. And then Rhonda's mom is at home. Charlene is doing better. She had a lawnmower accident, wound up life-flighting her to Vanderbilt and kept her for a couple of days, but she is home now and doing okay from that. So let's keep her in our thoughts and prayers along with all the others. And I understand Don Folks is in the hospital in Nashville and is on a respirator. He has a hole in his heart, is what I understood. So let's keep Don in our thoughts and prayers. We'll try to find out a little more information about that. I didn't have a clue of that until Linda told me just a little bit ago. So let's remember all of those that are sick. And of course, we have a number of people that are sick. Jennifer Osborne, who texted me this morning, she's still not feeling well. She was sick last Sunday and still not feeling well today. And said she tested negative for COVID, but she said she felt like she had COVID. So, but she tested negative anyway. So, but she's not feeling well. So let's remember all those that are sick, and there's a good number, as I said, good number that are not feeling well. So we'll ask you to bow. Jason, how about leading us in a word of prayer, please?
Lord, Father in heaven, we humbly bow before your throne this morning. Thank you for blessing us another day, Lord's Day, to come worship, serve you, sing praises to you. Pray that you be with all the teachers of the hour today. Pray they have a ready recollection of everything they prepared to study with us. I pray that we study with open hearts and look upon the Scripture and do our best to understand the truth, accept it to our lives, and be better Christians for it. Lord, we have mentioned many sick this morning. We pray that you continue to be with them. Put your healing hand upon them, be thy will. We know that you've also answered prayers for us. We thank you for Brother Keith being able to come home, Sister Rhonda's mom being able to come home. Pray that you continue to comfort them, strengthen them, give back a portion of health, be thy will. Lord, we ask that you be with those over in the hospital that are needing care at this time. Pray that you be with the hands that wait upon them. Comfort them, strengthen them, be with their families as well. Lord, we ask that you continue to be with us this morning through this Bible study. Thank you so much for your word, the truth, and your perfect law. Thank you most of all for your Son, and give us hope of heaven if we live by thy will. Pray that you continue to be with us through this class and through our lives. Help us to always be examples to others, and always study upon your word, and always have an answer for any questions that come about. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us. Pray that you give us a home in heaven in the end without faith. It's nothing we pray. Amen.
Amen. Gina's not feeling well this morning also, I forgot. They hope to be here by worship, but Marty texted me and said she's not feeling well this morning. Why was there a need for elders in every church? According to this text that we're looking at. All right. Keep everything in order. Any others? All right. To expose and to refute, to convict, and even to convert those that would be false teachers. Was false teaching a problem that the New Testament church faced? Now, where did a lot of that false teaching come from? Certainly not all of it, but a lot of it did. Within, okay. You know, Paul warned in Acts 20 and verses 32, said even from among the eldership, basically was what he was saying, from among you, men shall arise speaking perverse things to draw away disciples after them. So, and now, from among them, Who do you think that would be, and that would kind of encompass? Yeah, the Jews especially. Okay, and it would be in the circumcision. And he warns them concerning the circumcision even in this text here. So a lot of the problems and a lot of the false teaching actually came from among the Jews. What kind of false teaching would the Jews be teaching? Or what would be some of that error that they would be trying to get people to believe and follow and practice? Circumcision, okay. Had to be circumcised to be saved. What else? Yeah, keeping the law. That was the two things that he discussed, you remember in Acts the 15th chapter, was the fact of whether or not one had to be circumcised and keep the law to be saved. And of course, one of the things that we can see even in this particular text, he talked about those that are pure. If you look at the ideal of purity, verse 15, and you think about being pure, what do you think he's talking about here? It says, to the pure, all things are pure. To those that are not, of course, abominable and so on. What things would he be warning about? What things did they think that would not be pure?
Well, he tells them to hold fast to the faithful words.
Okay. All right. What about the eating of meats? Did they think some things were unclean and would, in essence, be impure? But yet, what does the Bible teach about things that we eat? Yeah, he's more concerned about what comes out than what goes in. Okay. There is a limitation, even on that. What is it that you and I can't eat today? Blood. Now, I don't know about you. I don't have any problem with that. I don't want any anyway. So, but most of us don't have any problem. But yet, that is forbidden even under the law of Christ, isn't it? As we can obviously see. But under the Jewish system, there were a number of things, obviously, that would be considered unclean. Bacon, would that be clean or unclean? Unclean, why? Yeah, because came from a hog or pork, and they were forbidden to eat that. What about catfish? It would be unclean. Why would it be unclean? Didn't have any scales, did it? Isn't it amazing what we like this day and time? Most of us like bacon, don't we? Most of us like catfish. We drive for miles to eat at a catfish restaurant. Most of us do anyway. I've done that on different occasions. But those were some things that were unclean, and these were some things I suppose that they would be trying to emphasize that you would have to abstain from. And then there would be the ceremonial cleansing of things too, the process that they would go through. Jesus even condemned the Jews for washing their hands, according to Mark's gospel, a certain way. In other words, my understanding is the certain way that they had to wash and they'd scrub all the way to the elbows, and they'd make sure that, and then when they would rinse it, that they'd make sure that the water would run down and drip off their elbows, and then they had a certain way that they would dry themselves to be ceremonial clean. Really, is that what the Old Testament said, that you had to wash your hands in a certain way? Well, no, it didn't say that. But that was their traditions that had been handed down. And so these are some issues, no doubt, that they were having to deal with and having to follow. And this is why it was so important to have men to oversee the flock that were mature individuals and that would teach and preach the truth. Then in verses 12, he says, one of them, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. Now then, does that speak well for this island and for the people on this island? That doesn't speak too well of them, does it? They're known as a people that would lie, that they're evil beasts, and they're lazy gluttons. That doesn't speak well for an individual. It's almost like, do we have an element in our society today that almost identifies as well? Well, it's almost identifies some, doesn't it? Do you have people that are lazy and won't work? Do we have plenty of those kind in our society? Sad to say, but that is the truth, isn't it? I think our government, instead of aiding and helping, that they almost promote that among them, and for people not to get a job when they give them money when they won't even work. So That's the sad thing in our society that we can see. But it's kind of sad that you see that this is what they were known for. Now, when he says one of them, a prophet of their own. Now, what kind of prophet was this? Was this an inspired prophet of God, or what was this?
Secular writer.
Yeah, it would be a secular writer or one of their own prophets. Could say and use the word poet.
He's been identified.
Yeah. Epimenides would be, and I think it's how you said. And he lived around 600 BC. So this was before Christ, obviously, before Christ came. So he'd been around for a while. But he's one of their own writers, in other words. It would be just like somebody writing writing a book among us today. But it would be one of their own prophets or one of their own poets, some might even translate it as, is who he's talking about here. Now he said they're liars. How would you describe or define that? All right, not telling the truth. Have you ever seen some people that almost seem like that they'd rather tell the lie than tell the truth? Have you ever seen people like that? And you know those people, and when they tell you something, do you believe it? No, you doubt it, don't you? Even though it might be the truth, what they're telling you at the time, but they've lied to you so many times that you don't believe them. And so we have to be careful that that's not the case with us, that we're not liars. In the book of Revelation, it says that all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire and brimstone. So does that tell us that all liars are going to be lost? Do people categorize lies? Some big and some little? Some's okay and some's not? But what does the Bible say? He said all liars. He didn't put them in a category, did he? Big ones and little ones and black ones and white ones, as some try to do today. So one has to be careful that we don't lie. Can you lie and not even know it? Well, you can. What if somebody gives you the wrong information and you share that information and it might not be the truth? So you don't deliberately do that. We have to be careful about that, don't we? But we have to make sure that we work to not lie and tell people things that are not true. But these people were known for that. Any thoughts about that? Yeah, Harold?
My brother called me a while back.
Mm-hmm.
I was busy, and I said, Garland, I'll call you later in the week. Well, it entered my mind to do that, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Is that sinful?
I don't think so. You had the intentions of doing that. You can go back and call him now. So
Well, I called him.
yeah. Well, and you did. So yeah.
But I did.
No. Sure. No. I don't think so. But
Wondered that for a while.
yeah, I don't think so. A lot of times we intend on doing something. We get busy and forget it. I forget to do things. You forget to do things. You go up and look at my desk, and I have sticky notes stuck across the top of my desk, and I forget to read the sticky notes sometimes. And so then I'll realize, I'll look up and I say, oh man, I didn't do that. And you intend on it, but then you go do it. So you don't intend on doing that. Sometimes it's just because we're busy, and those things are we neglect things doing it. Sometimes we say that we'll do. We try to do them though, and we always should try to do them. That's for sure. You're right. Any other thoughts? Charles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's notable that we have the word Cretan in the English language today. And it's based on the Greek word for these people that been deceivers. So
To lie,
today
yeah.
it's not a complimentary term.
Yeah. And actually, they use the term in Greek, Cretanize. And the word Cretanize actually meant what he says here. It's just like to Corinthize. The word Corinthize, the Corinthians were known for their immorality and their sexual immorality. So to act like a Corinthian would be to be sexually immoral. To Cretanize would be basically a liar and an immoral person as well. So, and it's kind of, as you look at that, of how those words come to mean that, and of course how they have applied because of what was said about these particular individuals. All right. Any other thoughts? What about evil beast?
Jim,
I'm sorry.
sorry
No.
I think one of the big warnings here is we have them describe the nature
Yeah.
of the Cretans. Well, evidently that nature is coming to the church. You would like to think that when a
Yeah.
person becomes a Christian, the nature of Christ overtakes them, but
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't work as well as it should.
Well, in the book of James, he warns us concerning that, talking about the overflow of wickedness, that we have to make sure that we remove that. If you've done something your whole life, you've practiced something your whole life, is it easy to change overnight when you've done something your whole life? No, it's not easy to change overnight, is it? You have to work at it. Through your life as a Christian, I don't want you to answer me. You answer this for yourself. Through your life as a Christian, have there been areas of your life that you've had to work at extremely hard because of the fact of maybe some things that you've done when you were young and you did it for a period of time? I dare say that most of us would say that. There are things that you have to work at and work especially hard at when you've done it for a while. And Charles is exactly right. This is issues that would be facing the church, because the church exists among a group of people that are known for these things. And some of these people that were known for doing this most likely were converts to Christianity. And it was affecting the church from the standpoint of, you have young converts in the church that probably were converted out of this kind of lifestyle, but also this kind of lifestyle affects the church itself from the standpoint of just like the world affects us. And we have to be careful that the world doesn't affect our thinking. Can one's moral standards be lowered because of the world? Has that happened, you think, through the years? Well, yeah, it's happened through the years, and we have to be careful that we're not part of that. And so I think that's a very, very valid argument that Charles is making here, and certainly I think that's the case. He's exactly right. And it has affected them, and we have to be careful it doesn't affect us as well. All right, any other thoughts? What about evil beast? Anybody? Boy, I've heard that many times myself. And I guess I've said that. I've said that myself at different times too, and that's probably a pretty good saying. But when you're dealing with error, you have to reveal this error that they're obviously guilty of. If you think of an evil beast, what would you think of? Do what? Living like animals? Unrestrained? Okay. And usually if you think about living like animals, what do you usually think of? Well, what's connected with that? What do you think of that's connected with that? Low life, okay. Vicious. And that's actually how the term is defined, is vicious. That's one of the words that be used. Survival of the fittest, okay. Yeah. It's kind of like you're talking about biting, devouring. I guess that would be a good thing. I usually think of the sexual sins that would be associated with those kind of things. Unrestrained. But the word itself is a metaphor. It's metaphorical of brutal, bestial man, or savage, or ferocious is how it's defined. But a lot of the commentaries I read concerning this usually tied this in with the sexual immorality that would go on. And I think that would be a problem. Sexual immorality was a problem during New Testament times, just like it is this day and time. It's amazing what we can see going on. I went to Chapel Hill Friday and had run down to the hardware store for just a moment, came back through town, and I noticed some kids. I think it was homecoming for Chapel Hill, and I noticed some kids walking up the side of the road, and there were several young boys, and there were two young girls. And I'm going to tell you, there was a young girl there that her dress was way up here. And I'm thinking, what is a mom and dad thinking to allow a teenage girl to wear such a short dress as that? Is that what our society has come to, though? That's pretty well what our society has come to, hasn't it? Mom and dads don't think anything about their kids wearing such little short dresses as that and reveal themselves. You know, it's amazing. I couldn't help but just shake my head and just go on. Brandon? Hmm?
Was the Corinthian church and the other parts of the New Testament, were they having such a problem with sexual immorality because things were allowed and permitted before Christ came?
Well, they were.
I know there was polygamy, there was all sorts of
Yeah.
things that were permissible before he
Yeah.
came.
Well, in Corinth particularly, they had temples to false deities and false gods, and they had temple prostitutes. So now, if you think of that for just a moment, think of here that a man could go and commit sexual immorality with a temple prostitute in the name of religion. Now, you just think of how immoral that really is and what that would lead to. You know, if you've ever read anything about the city of Corinth, it was one of the most immoral cities that you could read about in the New Testament. But yet there was a church there. But yet also we read of Paul and writing to that, writes 2 epistles to that. And in every single chapter there's a problem that he has to deal with. And a lot of it had to do with the society in which that church was established. And so it was a huge problem. You know, God will allow things to continue. You know, that's the thing about it. In Romans 1, that's what he says there. It doesn't mean that he approves of it. But if that's what you want to do and live in rebellion against him, he'll let you do that. And he'll let you do that to your own destruction and your own destruction to the society. That's why it's so important that we live moral lives and we teach other people how to live moral lives too. So that's what the Lord wants us to do. But you can see how that progresses. You know, sin progresses. It doesn't draw you closer to God. It drags you farther away. You go deeper and deeper into sin, and more things are accepted. Just look in the society in which we live today. I got a text from a lady, and she says, even Peppa the pig is supporting homosexuality, and I never could pull it up, but I don't doubt that at all. But you know, it's kind of a sad thing. And then the Disney movie that's coming out of promoting paganism and demons and various things like that, and meets with their approval. And so it's kind of mind-boggling what's being accepted in our societies today. And if you speak out against it, then you're a hater of people. It's not that you hate the people. You hate the sins that they're guilty of and the immorality that comes as a result of that. And so that's the kind of society that you and I are in, and the point that we're at today. But any other thoughts about evil beast? Hope. Uh-huh.
You were saying, immorality spread, and you talked about Chapelville.
Yeah.
That's where my grandchildren go, and I think
Yep.
of it as a small community
Yeah.
that, for the most part, has always had God at the center of their education. Well, I've heard some things that are going on down there that
Blows your mind?
it blows my mind, and to think that it's right there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think about the children that are there and how they see this,
Yeah.
and the teachers can't do anything about it, and they're desensitized by the time they're
Sure.
at school.
Yep.
It doesn't. And I know there's no new thing under the earth, but I'm going to tell you, if what I heard is going on down there, it is brand new to Middle Tennessee. I can just assure you.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether to go and talk to the powers that be, or keep my mouth shut and go on. I don't know.
Well, I don't either. You have to stand up for what you believe, and sometimes you have to speak out, obviously. And even though the people sometimes reject that. But certainly that's some things that we have to do. We have to be careful. And there's a lot of stuff like that. And we'd be amazed at some of the things that, I'm kind of sheltered from that. And then I don't have kids in school, and the people that I associate with the most are these people right here. And this is who my life is around, and I'm involved in with people here. And these are all good people, and I don't have to, I'm not exposed to those kind of things. And so I'm kind of sheltered from those things. You know a whole lot more about it than I do.
Part of it is some of the students, and they've got to be transplants. I just can't believe we have produced children right here in this county that would do this. But, they identify as an animal, as a cat or a dog.
Yeah.
And the things that they do during the day is,
Unbelievable.
yes,
I can imagine.
it could be a health violation is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I can understand. Brandon.
But part of the problem, I feel so bad for grandparents and parents, is the teacher's hands are handcuffed.
They do,
Can't
yeah.
You can go to them, but they can.
Not much they can do.
They can't stand up for anything.
Yeah.
It's so sad
It is.
that we've come to this.
It is. It is a sad thing. That's for sure. Vicky, huh?
I have grandchildren there as well. But the sad part for me was they had a dance last night in high school. And there's members I know that have been within the church. Their daughters were dressed just like you were describing.
Oh, yeah.
It just amazed me. I'm thinking, what are they teaching? I mean, and I know they've been in church.
Well, people that are pedophiles. Do you know what they're looking for in kids? Boys or girls. This is not just exclusively little girls. I mean, this can be little boys as well. That's, pedophiles. They're attracted to little boys just like they are little girls. But you know what they look for? I've did a little research on this just to see. What they're attracted to is the more of the body that's exposed, the more they're attracted. And so, you need to understand that if this is your kids, and and protect them. You don't want your kids exposed to that kind of thing. And it's trying to get people to see this is hard sometimes. But because I guess the pressure is placed upon them and their kids to be like other kids in the school, and if they're not like other kids in the school, then they're somewhat rejected. And if we're rejected, we just have to be rejected. But getting parents to see this and kids to understand this, it's a job. Linda? Hmm? Yeah, that's what Vicky's talking about. Yeah, you do. Sad thing about it. Yep. 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 You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Oh yeah. Most of us have been battling this for a good number of years, and you're trying to tell people. I put articles in the bulletin that I preach about these things, and hopefully people will see this, and I don't know what else you do, but you just keep doing it. You don't give up, and you can't give up. You just try to keep pointing this out to people and let them know the dangers of what's happening and what's going on. That's for sure. It's sad that our society is the way that it is this day and time, but it is. Marshall went to school at Chapel Hill. When Marshall was up there, there were a lot of quite a few of the teachers were Christians, as far as I know, and or a few of them at least. We moved to Kingston Springs, and just about every single teacher that Marshall had in Kingston Springs were members of the church, and so and that was one of the best environments that Marshall was ever in, as far as when he was going to school, was at Kingston Springs. That was the principal was a member of the church, and most of the teachers were members of the church, and so it was fantastic. It was good. That didn't mean that there weren't some things that that went on that shouldn't, but it meant that he had a better chance of having Christians teaching and instructing him. So that was a good thing. So, all right, anything else? Steve. Yeah. Yeah.
And they decided to homeschool him simply because in whatever class it was like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids it was going to be in that classroom or something. Maybe it was just
Mhm.
maybe 20 or something. And there were so many girls, there were so many boys. There were 5 who had yet to be gender identified and decided. That's a 5 or 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Problem with that child.
Problem with their parents. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are things that you and I would have never ever dreamed of when we were going to school. I mean, I knew what gender I was. Nobody had to decide. Nobody had to decide that. The good Lord decided that a long time ago. But you never heard of those kind of things. And do you think that that's something that a 5 or 6-year-old or 7 or 8-year-old should decide what gender they want to be? No, that's not something that should be decided by a kid. But that's the kind of parents. Now then, we've said all this. Now let's get to the heart of the issue. Do you know the heart of this issue? It's not the teachers in school, and it's not the kids in school, but it all starts in the home. There's the bottom line to all of that. It's the home. It's what kids are taught in the home, and it's the kind of moms and dads that they have. And so that's the answer to all the problems that we have in society today. Now that may be a simplistic view, and there may be some other complications that could come in, but the bottom line is the problem that we face in this country, just like in every country, is home and home life and what kids see at home. You know, around big cities like Nashville, you have a mother raising kids. Where's the dad at? He's not there. He's off somewhere else. He's off impregnating some other woman somewhere else and got multiple kids by different women and has no responsibility to any of them. And they wonder what's wrong with society. Well, that's what's wrong with society. I remember when I was in Nashville that they were recruiting black male teachers. And I'm not trying to be racial with this. This has nothing to do with that. Those that may be listening on YouTube has nothing to do with that at all. But that was just the truth of the matter. And the reason that they wanted black male teachers is because a lot of the little black kids, they had no fathers in their lives and had no influence from a man and that had any kind of moral principles at all. And so that's the reason that they were doing that. So, and that's what's got us to this point, this day and time in our society, is home and home life is failing. All right. Anything else? Yeah. That's crazy. Well, I don't doubt it. I mean, you think that's pretty far-fetched, but it's really not in the society that we're in this day and time. So that's amazing. How many different genders are there now? Anybody know that? Well, I know. Yeah, that's the truth, Steve. Yeah, we know the truth of that. But How many does society say that there is? Maybe I ought to rephrase that question. Well, too many, whatever it is. If it's more than two, it's too many, isn't it? But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Anyway, all right. Any other thoughts? Sure. Sure.
When you think about all these things that are going on and the sins of immorality,
Yeah.
and it's something I try not to do, and it's, you're offending someone else, because when they see this, like your daughter out dressed immodest, or your son
Yeah.
dressed immodest, then they think, well, okay, it's okay. I can do that because they attend services and they're Christians,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what scares me. And, I don't think people realize how dangerous it is to offend someone in that way.
Well, you can. The example that you set before people has an impact upon them, and not only upon them, but upon you and your family as well. But we have to be careful that we live godly lives and set good examples before others as well. That's for sure. Any other thoughts? Let's look at the last part of that. And he said, lazy gluttons. What's lazy gluttons? Slow bellies? Well, I think that's what the King James says, isn't it? Yeah, slow bellies. Yeah. I've been reading. It's the last few days here on how we got the English Bible, and of course the King James actually was translated from some of the later manuscripts and not some of the earlier ones, and that's the reason why some of the words have been changed in that, and of course, but it's interesting some of the words that the King James does uses. Slow bellies, but lazy gluttons is what the New King James uses. So, what is a lazy glutton? Okay, and it would be involved in lack of self-control. Yeah, I think you're right in this, but it does have to deal with eating as well. So, actually, the term, Brandon.
I may be wrong on this, so please correct me. But wasn't there a problem during this time with gluttony, as in they were making themselves throw up so they can eat more, because it was such, when you had wealth, it was so, it was a sign of wealth to overeat, and they actually had a problem of overeating, making them themselves throw up so they could go eat more, and it was really a big problem during these times.
Well, part of gluttony carries with it that kind of that idea. I don't find that is exactly how the word itself is defined in this particular passage, but I think you could probably see that might be involved in it. Let me give you the definition of. Obviously, lazy is idle or unemployed or lazy, and lazy gluttons is how the Concise Greek English Dictionary of the New Testament gives. Glutton is particularly the stomach, and metaphorically the appetite. Excessive eating is how it's defined. In the New Testament, a glutton, he said the Cretans are always slow bellies, meaning lazy gluttons. Said such in ancient Greek were called slaves of their stomach. And so it involved excessive eating. Do we all overeat sometimes, or we think that we overeat sometimes? But does that necessarily mean that it's gluttonous, what we've just done? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're gluttons just because we feel like sometimes that we overeat. But here, the word itself is connected with the ideal of being lazy, unwilling to work, and all they want to do is lay around and eat, and all the time, and overeat, excessive eating. And it could involve, as you said, and I've heard that as well, of the throwing up so that they can eat more, and they throw up just so that they can eat more. What a pitiful sign of how a society really was, or a person really was. Anybody else have anything about that?
Someone overweight, it was the opposite of our society now.
Yeah.
Someone overweight during these times was a sign of wealth.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people.
Eating well.
If you didn't have a lot of means,
Yeah.
you couldn't eat well.
Yeah.
But during these times, the heavier you were,
Yeah.
it was a sign of wealth.
You know, just because somebody's overweight doesn't mean that they're gluttons, even in the society that we live in today. There's a lot of problems that people encounter that can cause you to be overweight, and it's not because you're gluttonous at all. It doesn't mean that at all. So, some people think that, but that's not true. Anybody else have any idea about gluttony? Don, you had something. I noticed you. Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty bad, ain't it? Yeah. It's sad to see, and I think Vicky's right in this. I mean, it's a lack of self-control on the part of individuals. But to me, it's connected with this ideal of lazy as well. I mean, they won't work, and they're just idle, and all they do is lay around and eat. And they overindulge when they eat. I mean, can never be satisfied, and it seems like. But anyway, this is the kind of society that Paul is wanting them to make sure that they have elders, because need mature men to teach and to instruct and to expose these errors in the society itself, and so that the church won't become like this. Okay, any thoughts about verse 12? Any? Okay, look at verse 13. This testimony is true. What does he mean by that? What that prophet said was true. Yeah. Now this is Epimenides is the prophet that he's talking about here. He said this testimony is true. As I said, this man lived in about 600 B.C. And some would conclude that he was a prophet because what he said in 600 B.C. has come true when this was written in the 50s or 60s, early 60s, I suppose. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but simply what Paul is saying, what this man said is true, because that's exactly what they were known for. He said, therefore, because this was true, he said, therefore, rebuke them sharply that they may be sound in the faith. Now, this was the responsibility that Paul is assigning to Titus as an evangelist. But this is one of the reasons why he wanted men appointed as overseers of the flock as well. Because when Titus is not there, or when Timothy's not there as an evangelist, then the eldership had to oversee the flock and to make sure that these things were exposed and that they were taught the truth. Rebuke them sharply. Those that would say these things, those that would teach these things, those whose mouths must be stopped that he mentioned in verses 11, those that would be teaching, believing, practicing these things, these are the people that he says they need to be rebuked sharply. If you rebuke someone sharply, what do you do? Severely? Okay. Any others? I really like something that Robertson said in his word pictures of the New Testament. He said, it is necessary to appear rude sometimes for safety if the house is on fire and life is in danger. You know, sometimes one, if he's rebuking somebody and rebuking somebody sharply, might they appear rude if they're rebuking them sharply? But are they really rude, or are they concerned about the truth and the souls of those that they're rebuking? You know, it's pretty easy sometimes to make accusation and charges against people when they're rebuking you for some sin that you're guilty of. You know, usually one of the first things that people do is that they strike out against the person that's rebuking. That's usually the case. You know, I've through the years that I've been preaching, I remember going to numbers of houses, talking to numbers of people through the years about various sins that they may be guilty of. And usually the first thing that happens when you go there is that they start accusing you. I've been accused many times. Oh, you think you're more righteous and more upright, more holy. It's not about being more righteous, more upright, more holy. It's not about that at all. You know what I usually do to blunt that? I usually will ask him, I said, okay, what sin am I guilty of? And you tell me what sin I'm guilty of, and I'll ask for your forgiveness right now. And that usually blunts that. And then we can get down to the discussion of the problem that we're supposed to be discussing. But yet, you know, that's one thing that happens sometimes when you're involved with rebuking somebody. But might we need rebuking sometimes? Yeah, any of us could need that at some time or at some point. And understand that the person that's rebuking us, if they're doing it in a spirit of love, they're concerned about our souls and our well-being. They're concerned about their soul as well. But they're concerned about how that affects other people and their family also. Because the way that I live and lead my life, it can have an effect upon my family and others that I'm associated with as well. And so that's what he's telling them to do. Those need rebuking sharply for those that are in error. And it's important for all of us to be sound in the faith because that's the only way that we can please God. Charles, you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in Colossians 6 where it says, let your speech always be seasoned with grace as though
Yep.
seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person. Look at that, and sometimes, from what I understand, this
Yeah.
rebuke harshly carries with it the idea of put them to shame.
Yeah.
But we go back to Jesus, and he did the same thing, and the thing that really brought about this sharp rebuke was hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And when you look at who he rebuked there, it was hypocrisy that just almost automatically brought that sharp rebuke. And you see this here. They're pretending to be gospel teachers, and they're not teaching anything related to the gospel.
Yeah, they're professing themselves to be godly when they're actually ungodly themselves. And like you said, if you go back and look at Matthew 23 and Jesus and his rebuke of the Pharisees, what did he call them? Call them hypocrites. Is that an easy thing for somebody to say to you and for you to accept? You're a hypocrite? Well, that's not easy, is it? But was that what they were? That's what they were. Now, Jesus has an advantage that you and I don't have. What's the advantage that Jesus had that we don't have?
He's a heart reader.
Yeah, he knew the heart before he got there. We don't always know that, do we? We have bits and pieces of information. It's the reason why it's so important for us to connect Colossians 4:6 with this as well. You know, you do this and you can rebuke somebody sharply, but you can do it out of a spirit of love as well, care and concern for their souls. It's the way that you approach people and how you share those truths with them. All right, any other thoughts? Our time is up.
Is there any other words other than severely?
For this,
Yeah, or do you know what that word
abruptly, in a manner that cuts and cuts off, is how the term is defined. So that's a complete word study dictionary. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you.